You've experienced Tamriel in your own way, but want to learn more about its story. Well, to get to the heart of the story, you have to go back to the beginning.
Sotha Sil, Almalexia, Vivec, powerful immortal deities born not of celestial providence, but of flesh and blood and pain. Much has been written of the Tribunal and how these three mere mortals dared reach out to grasp the power of gods with an act so brazen. They transformed the world of Tamriel forevermore. To understand the Tribunal with perfect fullness, one name must resonate at the very core of your being. Many know of the Nerevarine, the prophesized reincarnation of Indorel, who rose to battle the insane man-god Dagoth, crushing House Dagoth and rescuing Morrowind from the soul sickness and the blight storms in the name of the most blessed Azura. But few know the man who came before, the very man whose orders Dagoth claimed to be following. And it is there that the story of the Tribunal truly begins. The time of the Nerevar was one of great conflict, a time when two races of Myr the Dwemer and the Chimer waged a war based on their theological differences. The Chimer had wandered many years, sustained by the worship of their ancestors and barbaric traditions of supplication and sacrifice. All accounts indicate they fared poorly, particularly in relation to the cold and clinical Dwemer who focused on science and engineering. The Dwemer had known great prosperity to the Chimer's displeasure, yet it was not from there that the strife between the two factions stemmed. The Chimer were outraged at what they saw as sacrilege from the Dwemer and would engage in raids intended to punish blasphemers. Only General Nerevar of the Chimer was able to foster a peace between the two. After he and General Dumak Dwarf King of the Dwemer joined forces to drive the invading Nords from Morrowind, the two created a truce that would last hundreds of years. It was a treaty built upon deep friendship, but the harmony wouldn't last. Nerevar's queen and his two most trusted advisors all foretold of the failure of the treaty and unavoidable war between the two races. Their prediction would change the destiny of Nirn. They were, respectively, Queen Indorel Almalexia, Sotha Sil, and Lord Vivec, the poet. It was Kagrenac, may his wretched name be cursed for all time. High priest and advisor to Dumak Dwarf King, he discovered the fabled heart of Lorkhan within the bowels of Red Mountain. Kagrenac recognized the fearsome potential in the heart, and had created means to use the sacred artifact to create a mechanical god, the Numidium. Kagrenac intended the Dwemer to bow down before the obscenity, believing worshipping it would lead to a deeper enlightenment and further prosperity. It also held the capacity to be a powerful weapon. In all, it was an act of utter defilement, and intensely profane to the fundamentalist Chimer. The First Council decided to send Nerevar as a representative of the Five Houses of the Dunmer, at that time known as the Five Houses of the Chimer. Nerevar was to stop the Dwemer and their infernal creation. However, he was a calculating man who would not move against his longtime friend without first hearing the words from Dumak's own mouth. He approached the Dwemer commander, intending to avert bloodshed, but to no avail. High Craft Lord Kagrenac was haughty and indignant, demanding to know how it was that Nerevar dared question the actions of the intellectually superior Dwemer. Dumak remained stoic, clearly weighing his options even as they rapidly dwindled to naught. It is believed that Dumak's silence actually masked great shock, for his own high priest's actions had been unknown even to the very chieftain of the Dwemer people. Still, Nerevar, against all advice, strived to make peace. He journeyed to the temple of the Daedric prince Azura. His supplication to the goddess revealed a vision. The Dwemer were indeed attempting to create a new god, and Kagrenac himself had crafted tools for the purpose of harnessing the power of the Heart of Lorkhan. This marked the final breakdown of communication between Dumak and Nerevar. The War of the First Council did commence. It was brutal and gruesome. United under the First Council, all the might of the Chimer was no match for the metal Dwemer automatons that had been designed for the sole purpose of rending flesh. The Dwemer creations were fast, merciless, and practically indestructible. They fell upon the Dunmer's ancestors with hellish clanking and demonic hissing, and where they passed, no life remained. Nerevar was rewarded for his masterful strategies and ferocity in battle, with full command over the massed forces of the Great Houses and the savage Ashlanders. He had successfully driven the Dwemer back on more than one occasion, using the Desert Barbarians in two-pronged assaults that left Dumak's forces cut off, broken, and in disarray. He led them all the way to Red Mountain on the island of Vardenfell, and lay siege upon Dumak's citadel, attacking the Dwemer stronghold with the bulk of his forces. Simultaneously, Nerevar himself led his most elite warriors through a narrow and virtually unknown passage that went almost directly to the chamber where the Heart of Lorkhan lay, and where Nerevar knew Dumak would be. With his ally Lord Dagoth at his side, Nerevar confronted Dumak Dwarf King and Kagrenac. Whatever final words were spoken between those two men has been lost to time. No record at all remains. What is believed is that on that dark and terrible day, two old friends slew each other, and that upon the death of his master, Dumak, the fool Kagrenac, in his grief and fear and rage, did attempt to use the profane tools he had created. Wielding the tools, Kagrenac struck the Heart of Lorkhan, and at that very instant, every Dwemer on Nirn vanished. No Dwemer was ever seen or heard from again. Nerevar lay mortally wounded, yet conscious. Furious, Lord Dagoth seized the tools of Kagrenac and demanded they be destroyed immediately by hurling them into the molten core of Red Mountain. But Nerevar would hear counsel from his queen, Sotha Sil and Vivec, before deciding what to do with the diabolical instruments. After being carried back to the surface and meeting with his counselors, he decided the tools would be preserved in secret, should the Dwemer return to wage war against the Five Houses again. Further, they all swore before Azura to never use the tools for any purpose akin to what the Dwemer had intended. Nerevar was quickly dying and would have all involved take the oath, including Dagoth. But when Nerevar and the Tribunal returned to the chamber that housed the Heart of Lorkhan, where Dagoth was standing guard, Dagoth was frenzied, wild-eyed, and rambling about how only he could wield the tools, and that only House Dagoth could house them. It was clear, whatever madness had gripped Kagrenac now infected Dagoth. With the last of his strength, Nerevar dealt Dagoth a grievous injury, and then expired at the site of his greatest victory. Nerevar's attack weakened the traitorous noble enough so that Nerevar's forces could take control of the tools from Dagoth, who hastily made his escape. With Nerevar dead, his advisors ascended to the highest ranks of the First Council, renaming it to the Grand Council. For many years, Vivec and Almalexia mourned Nerevar and leaned on one another for support. Sotha Sil, however, unbeknownst to the other members of the council, continued to explore the secrets of Kagrenac's tools. Ultimately, Sotha Sil approached Almalexia, who bitterly grieved her lord. Sotha Sil knew of Almalexia's anguish and swayed her with visions of a Chimer empire, with themselves as benevolent deities who would usher in the greatest era of prosperity ever known. Almalexia, in her emotional vulnerability, followed Sotha Sil, who had, it is assumed, succumbed to the very evil that had led the entire Dwemer race to extinction and Dagoth to madness. Sotha Sil seduced Almalexia that day, and she in turn persuaded Vivec that they should renounce their oaths to Nerevar and to Azura. That day, they committed sacrilege far greater than that of the Dwemer. Making pilgrimage to Red Mountain, the three did take up the tools of Kagrenac, and each in turn struck Lorcan's heart. And thus, the great and powerful Tribunal came to be. The new man-gods had broken their vows to divine Azura, and her rage would be boundless. She was furious at their betrayal, and it was the Dunmer that would bear the mark of her wrath. But that is a story for another day.